Incision from pubic symphysis up to the anterior superior iliac spine, exposing some of the femoral region on both sides. Exposing the flaps. This is the superficial fascia, campus fascia, and the blood vessels are running in the campus fascia. This is on the same side, and the membranous layer of the superficial fascia, which is also known as the scarpus fascia, was intact, but due as the body has get old, so therefore the scarpus fascia is not visible here. Then the muscles. External oblique muscle. The fibers directions are pockets in your hands. This is the aponeurosis of external oblique muscle. Then the internal oblique muscle, along with the transversus abdominis inferiorly. The both muscles join together to form a conjoint tendon. After the internal oblique muscle, we have the fascia transversalis. This white layer is fascia transversalis, and after exposing fascia transversalis, we have the parietal peritoneum. You can clearly appreciate two layers here. The above layer is the fascia transversalis, and the lower inferior layer is the this is the parietal peritoneum. This body is devoid of fats, so that is why you can not appreciate the extraperitoneal connective tissue here, but you can see here this is a little bit extraperitoneal connective tissue. This yellow color, it is running between the fascia transversalis and the parietal peritoneum. This inner layer is the parietal peritoneum, the outer one is the fascia transversalis, and in between these two there is the extraperitoneal connective tissue. After exposing all the layers, we have the greater sac. Okay, this is the rectus abdominis muscle. This is the rectus sheath, anterior lamina of the rectus sheath, and the posterior lamina cannot be appreciated because we have dissected deeper into the abdominal cavity. That is why we cannot do it. So this is the rectus abdominis muscle. This is the greater sac. The first thing that you can appreciate here is the greater omentum. This layer is the greater omentum. This is hanging downwards from the greater curvature of the stomach. This one is the greater curvature of the stomach, and these blood vessels that you are seeing in this greater omentum are the branches of the gastroepiploic arteries. These are the branches of the gastroepiploic arteries which are undergoing a vigorous anastomosis in the greater omentum. After exposing the greater omentum up, these are the coils of jejunum and ileum. If we reflect the stomach, as we have cut the greater omentum, that is why these layers are separable now. But prior to that, when we had not dissected it, these layers were like fused together. The layers of the greater omentum were fused to the superior surface and the anterior surface of the transverse column. So for now, they are separated. This is the transverse column, this structure, and this is the transverse mesocolon. This flap, this is the transverse mesocolon. All of this. These are the coils of jejunum and ileum. As we know that the mesentery of the small intestine is like a fan-shaped structure, so you can see the mesentery on both right and left side. From this side you can appreciate the mesentery. This one is the mesentery of small intestines. This structure, this is the mesentery of small intestine. From the right side you can also appreciate the mesentery. The mesentery has a curvy linear path. So this structure is the mesentery of small intestine. This is the free part of the mesentery of small intestine. you can see that most of the ileum is connected to this free part, and this mesentery is extending downward and laterally, and it is going to insert on the posterior abdominal wall. This is the course of mesentery. मैं तुम्हें ना बताता हूँ. Now we are going to demonstrate you the gutters and spaces in the infracolic region. This is the infracolic region. You know, this is the transverse colon, this is the transverse mesocolon. It is dividing the abdominal cavity into two spaces. Above this space, this whole thing, this whole thing is the supracolic space, and below this transverse colon, this whole space, this is the intracolic space. Actually, we are dividing the infracolic space into two regions, into two spaces, further two spaces. See, this is the mesentery of small intestine, and this is the descending colon. Between the mesentery and the descending colon, this is the space. This is the left infracolic space. Similar on the right side. This is the mesentery, and this is the ascending colon. Between the mesentery and the ascending colon, this is the space. This space is known as the right infracolic space. Now gutters. There are two gutters on right and left side. Between the posterior abdominal wall and the ascending colon, this is the gutter, in which you can see the water is stagnant. This stagnant pool of water is actually present in the gutter. This is the right paracolic gutter. This right paracolic gutter is actually making a connection between the infracolic space and the supracolic space. How it is making a connection? See, this is the paracolic gutter. If I insert my finger more, now my fingers are present in the supracolic space. My fingers are actually present in the supracolic space. So you can see the water here in the paracolic gutter can go into the supracolic space. It actually happens in case of infections. If there is an infection in the paracolic gutter, it can easily go into the supracolic space by the way of this gutter, as my fingers are going. Left paracolic gutter, this one in which the water is standing, this is the transverse colon. You can clearly appreciate that this is also in connection with the supracolic space. This is the spleen, this is the gastrosplenic ligament here, this one is the gastrosplenic ligament, and this is the transverse colon. So if I insert my fingers here, I can go into the supracolic space. So similar is the case for infections. On the left side, they can go from gutter into the supracolic space. This is the sigmoid colon, this structure, as I can easily mobilize it. It is due to the courtesy of the mesentery it has. It has a mesentery which is known as the transverse sigmoid mesocolon. This is the transverse sigmoid mesocolon, due to which it is mobile.